Hey fam, welcome to another Zoom for a community chat. We're going to do a little community check-in. I know some folks are kind of going through various things. It is illness and virus season, so there's definitely been a fair share of rounds going around with norovirus. Yay, children being vectors. Wash your hands. And a variety of all the other viruses that are just the smorgasbord right now. So just stay healthy as much as you can. Of course, mask up if you're open to that, and especially if you are at risk, like I am. But mask up if you can. If you're in a high risk situation, just be smart about it. Hopefully, we can get through these next few weeks. I think the estimate is we should be peaking the end of December. So we'll see. We're a few months behind Europe. All right. So enough talk about that because I don't want to talk about that. And no one really probably wants me to talk about that. We all want to forget about it. But today we're going to be talking about FTP and how the heck to use your score and what the heck you should do with your score and all of that jazz. I also want to answer a couple of questions that folks did send me who weren't able to attend. And I did, before that, want to also talk about movement snacks and just how to make the best of the situation, especially now that we have the consistency challenge. And this is a brand new feature. I did beta test it with a couple of clients of mine just to kind of see how it worked. And of course, I made myself a client, and I love this feature. It's a new challenge feature in the app. This app, it has its growing pains. I've been with this app for several years, and I will go ahead and say, like, the current iteration is perhaps the best iteration, yet. And I'm so excited to see how things will progress with this app, because compared to all the other apps that I've tried over the years, Training Peaks and all this other stuff, this is the app that can actually just do a lot more, and it can be a lot more robust. Because while I would love to deliver intervals in a different format, because that is one way I do love Training Peaks delivery for that, Training Peaks doesn't have anything on this app, Trainerize. And really neither does any of the other like 5 apps I think I tried all together. So hopefully you like it. Hopefully it also helps just encourage movement and encourage consistency, because that's the goal of it. I don't ever want to make a challenge where it is kind of like a go hard, go home type situation. And, it kind of makes you feel bad about yourself. Or it's the type of challenge where you're doing it for 6 weeks, great. And then after 6 weeks, you just forget everything, just as a perfect example. This is going to be just kind of setting you up for success. And chances are I'm going to use the consistency challenge as kind of a litmus test, or like a testing ground for future challenges every month. Because for those of you who have been in Shred Strong for at least a few months, you know that every month I do change the focus for folks to have some sort of habit to focus on. And chances are, after this consistency challenge, I might start to utilize the challenge feature in the app to help with our habits, because then it gamifies it. It just makes it a lot more fun. And, gamifying things has been proven time and time again to be one way to make things more successful when you're trying to change a habit. All right. So yay for challenge habits. I know Renee and a few other people were like, yes, like I love the idea of having something to work towards. So on the other side of the coin, if you are starting to notice, like, I'm feeling overwhelmed, or maybe you do have like an illness that pops up and it kind of makes it feel like it almost sets you back, right? It can be discouraging. All right, I'm just going to say it how it is. It can be discouraging to experience those things and experience setbacks and illness and things like that, and just stress in life. That's why it's so important to get really clear on your values and who you are. So going back to that values exercise, and don't worry, in the recording email, I'm going to include the values worksheet again. And chances are, because that was my first draft of doing a values worksheet, I've always used other people's worksheets, like psychologists that I follow online, because they usually publish it online, but I kind of wanted to make my own. So that was my first time doing it, and I might just eliminate the first page and just make it a lot more succinct. So once I make those final edits to it, I will email it to you all. But I think it's really important just to go back and reflect on values and kind of get in touch with who you are. And then think about, why you wanted to sign up for Shred Strong, or why you have a particular goal. And getting clear on that why is hands down going to be something that you can keep coming back to. And that will help empower you to keep showing up, on those days when like perfect example. I was talking to Stacey and Renee before I hit record. Like today, I actually slept in. I never sleep in. I slept in till like 7:30, which is so late for me. Normally I'm up at like 5:30. I just without alarm. I think I might have been exposed to something when I was at the dental office a couple of days ago. And my body, this is just my body's way, even though I feel fine, it's just my body's way of being like, dude, you need sleep or you're going to get sick. So like I woke up at 7:30 and I was like, what the hell? Like this is the danger of sleeping with ear earplugs. So I've been sleeping with earplugs for the past 2 weeks and I've been dead to the world. But anyways, I didn't get my morning workout in. So I've been trying to catch up all day because I was an hour to 2 hours behind. I'm trying to catch up all day. And once you lose those hours in the morning, I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced that, you cannot pick them up later on in the day. It is wild. So, anyways, I got in a workout right before I hit record for this or hopped on this call. But the reason I got on the bike, I didn't want to. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm a coach. I do this for a living. I didn't want to. It was kind of the last thing I wanted to do. I mean, I wanted to, but I didn't really want to because I didn't want to show up looking like hell for you all. But I was like, you know what? They're my team. They're going to get it. And Stacey and Renee made me feel good about myself and, said I looked okay. And they can't see the sweat on my upper lip right now. But it's just a case in point that this still happens to me. And I've been doing this for over 15 years. And so please know it's a human response, but reflecting back on who you are, the type of person you want to be, and the type of person you imagine you want to be, and then those goals. All right. Like, Stacey, is it okay if I kind of talk about like overarching general goals? Because you and I have similar, okay, good. Stacey and I have similar goals. We want to do endurance mountain biking events in 2024. And in order to do that, I know, right? Thanks, Renee. In order to do that, we have to show up. Like we're going to have to show up for just the crappiness and the suckiness and long miles on the bike. And there's going to be some pain there involved, right? But in order to kind of lessen that pain threshold, we're going to have to keep reminding ourselves who we are, the type of person we want to be, and why. What's our big why? And that's what got me on the bike today. And so I was like, damn it, no, I'm going to do it. And Stacey might find herself doing that, Renee as well. And it's really important, and I know the values exercise seems like it's a little bit like hippy dippy, and it is, but there's a reason for it. And there's a reason that it works because it really helps get in touch with who you are and where you want to be and what your goals are. All right. So that's what I really recommend. If you are having a hard time with motivation, now that my website's also working, check out my recent episode with Sabrina Joe, Dr. Sabrina Joe, one of my good friends. She literally is an expert on motivation. That was what her dissertation was on. And she did such a great job of kind of getting in touch with like what helps with that, and it is the recent episode before the last one. So I think it's like 145, if I'm not mistaken, episode 145. But she gives some really good tips on kind of what to do. And especially if you kind of find yourself lackadaisical about motivation and how you can kind of spark that engine a little bit. But values, reigniting those goals, making sure that you're clear on your goals and your why. If you need help with that, message me. More than happy to talk about goals. Freaking love talking about goals. And then we can kind of go forward with that. On that note, I am in the process of putting together a Google form. It's optional, but it's Google form for my Shred Strong athletes that will ask you, hey, what are your values that you identify with? It's optional. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. But I would love for you to answer, what are your goals for 2024? What are some overarching things? Because even though this isn't a one-on-one program, it helps me kind of see. And then I can maybe respond back with, a message saying, hey, let's hone it down a little bit. Let's get it a little bit more succinct, and kind of give you a little bit more process goals. Because it's great to have this overarching goal of like Firecracker 50, for example, in Breckenridge or Leadville 100 or whatever, right? It's great to have that as a goal, but what are the stair steps to getting to that? Okay. And chances are, if you can't tell already, like the next Zoom will most likely be about goals and goal setting and how we can do that, especially since it will be in the new year, the first week of the new year. You don't have to start on January 1st. That's a thing that we place. Time is this relative thing, so you don't have to start on January 1st. You can start on that Friday. You can start on the following Monday. It doesn't matter. You can start a goal tomorrow. I don't care. So please don't stress out over not starting exactly on January 1st. But there will be some conversations that will be had over the next few weeks about goal setting and how to kind of do it and stuff like that. Okay, so I've spent a few minutes talking about that, but it's very important because this is how you can keep that motivation kind of sparking and keep you showing up. The next thing, accountability. Having an accountability buddy, having a friend, having someone that you can reach out to and just be like, hey, you want to go for a bike ride? Or, hey, I'm stuck indoors training because it's getting ready to snow this weekend. Do you want to do like a Zoom workout together? Do you want to like whatever? There's so many options, you know, if you just want to go for a winter walk, you know, I mean, so many options, including, hey, do you want to go grab lunch? Do you want to go walk the dogs together? Do you want to do XYZ? All of these things are really important because having some sort of social connection, I know I just talked about like, you know, illnesses and things like that, but it's very important to still have social connection somehow. And I think we all kind of learned that back in 2020 and, you know, just how it felt to have that disconnection with people. And I think it's important to have your core group of people that you can kind of reach out to and have a support system in place. You know, for me, it's definitely my partner and a handful of friends. And I'm trying to recruit other people who want to do long miles, you know, and who want to be subjected to longer bike rides because not everyone wants to do that, which I get, I totally get. But just kind of finding those core people and ask them. I know it feels like you're dating all over again because literally finding friends as an adult really does feel like dating, like because you're kind of like, hey, I really like you, I like your energy. Do you want to hang out? You know, but like in a platonic way. I get it. I know it's a unique situation. It's one reason I love the Combo Women's Program is because I feel like, you know, I've met some of my good friends that way. Other people I've seen friendships form in those rides and things like that. And it's really cool to kind of see. But get an accountability buddy too, last but not least. All right, so let's talk about FTP. FTP is not everything. I want to go ahead and start with that. So it is not a gold standard by any means. If anything, FTP is just kind of a way to measure some sort of progress. All right. It's kind of like it can be as random sometimes as the weight on your scale, which you all know I'm not like 100% big fan of, right? But seriously, like if you have a really high salty meal and you weigh yourself, you're going to be a little bit heavier because it's just water weight and you're bloating. And oh my gosh, if you're a menstruating individual and it's before your period, don't weigh yourself. You know, it ebbs and flows. FTP can also ebb and flow a little bit, especially if you have an autoimmune condition. There could be flare-ups. If you slept like shit, or you're in your luteal phase, or you're in a phase that it does not agree with you, and then you do a test, it might not be as great as your previous test. So, a couple of tips: keep it as consistent as possible. Try to do the testing at the same time of day if you can. Try to pick the most energetic time of day for you, which could be different. You know, try to have a little bit of fuel in you, even if you are doing it in the morning. So first thing in the morning, you can do it fasted if you want to. I mean, that's fine. If you feel okay doing fasted, there is no magic with fasting. But, you know, I will say something with an intense effort like an FTP test, it is smart to have some sort of fuel. And definitely, for the love of goodness, have a bottle of water with you and have a fan. Like you're gonna need something to keep you cool and just keep you hydrated. Now, the number does not identify you. It does not mean good or bad. It's kind of like an HRV, a heart rate variability. It varies per person. All right. Everyone has kind of a different place that they're starting from. And you just want to know where you're going. All right. So just use it as a little bit of a guide, but try not to put too much pressure on that number. Okay. I know some coaches out there, they really put a lot of pressure on FTP, and I don't personally think that that's good for anyone. It can give you a nice indication of like, hey, okay, I'm progressing nicely. So give yourself that. But please, if you are a menstruating individual and your period does impact your performance, like for me, 2 days before my period starts, it's the end of times for me. I have no energy, you know, but everyone's different. You might be okay. Like some of my friends are just like, dude, I have no idea. Like I know I'm getting ready to start and I just don't feel it at all. I'm very jealous of those people. But respect how your body responds to your cycle and try to test when you feel kind of at your best. You know, for me, it's right after I start my period. Then I'm like, okay, I feel so good. I can lift really heavy then too. And hormonally, that's actually a similar profile to our male counterparts right after you start your period. But that's a whole other subject. But listen to your body, do what feels best for you, okay? But don't identify strongly with the number. Now, use it as a point to kind of know, like, okay, you're progressing well. The thing I wanted to talk to you all about in terms of like actual test numbers. Let me see. I'm trying to look through my notes here. So, you know, if you're doing a Peloton or a Zwift or Stages or, oh my God, there's so many, Training Road, any of those pre-done FTP tests, whatever FTP they tell you you have after that, that's your FTP. So those tests automatically generate the FTP and calculate it automatically for you, okay? So it makes it a life a lot easier. Now, if you're doing an FTP test on your own without using Zwift and all this other stuff, like maybe you're doing it outdoors and you're doing the 20-minute, like full on 20-minute, and that you might have seen me talk about this. I forget who asked the question. Can't remember off the top of my head, but they asked in the messages last week, the week before, you know, hey, what about the 20-minute one? I think it was Steph. That number, so that average power meter, if you do have a power meter on your bike and you're doing it outdoors, for example, or indoors, if it's a 20-minute test, then you're going to take 95% of that number, okay? Because FTP measures what you can hold in an hour, all right? So that's where people are like, I can't hold 210 watts in an hour, like if they happen to get a 210, right, as their max output. And they're like, I mean, because at first it's kind of funny to see the wave, especially with my one-on-one clients that I work with, because they're like, holy shit, I get my FTP is 210. And I'm like, not necessarily. Let's talk this, like, let's talk through this. This is back when I used to actually do testing. I don't do testing anymore, sorry. But when they're doing 20-minute efforts, all right, of holding, like say they're holding 180, their FTP is not necessarily 180, it's 95% of that, all right? Now, if they're doing the ramp test, however, because you're only holding that max for 1 minute. So I have some folks who are like, dude, my max was like 310 or 250 or like really cool numbers, right? And like, it feels really good. But then, unfortunately, like I have to say, well, just take 75% of that. Because the 1 minute, think about it, you're holding that for just 1 minute and it feels like an eternity, right? Because you're going all out. But imagine, can you hold that 1 minute wattage output for an hour? You know, I don't know about you, I would not be able to hold 310 for an hour. Even when I was in my peak cycling, you know, fitness, I was not able to hold 310 for 1 hour for me. All right. So if you're doing the ramp test, that's just 1 minute max intervals at a time, take 75% of that, right? Which I know might burn a little bit, because I remember the first time I took an FTP test, I was like, really? That's all it is? But just know it can get better, which is really cool. And that's such a cool concept. So hopefully that makes sense. 20-minute output, take 95%. And then if it's a 1 minute on the ramp test, a 1 minute max, whatever you can do before you completely bonk out, take 75%. All right. But if you were using Pelotons or any preset testing, use their number. Cool? All right, cool. Awesome. And I sometimes I dislike the word test, you know, because sometimes when I put that in the programming, folks are like, oh my God, are we testing 1 rep max? And I'm thinking, no, you're not strength athletes. Like, no, absolutely not. If you were getting ready for a powerlifting event or Olympic weightlifting event or like a squat 1 rep max, then yeah, let's test 1 rep maxes. But I can pretty much tell you, I mean, even Olympic level athletes who are cyclists don't necessarily know their 1 rep max in deadlift, squat, all this other stuff. They just don't, because they're not necessarily testing their 1 rep max because they're just not strength athletes. Strength is important, but it's not something that they're really going to go all out on. But testing for us is going to be more in terms of like, hey, let's do FTP test. Or, you know, I've been debating on having you all do like a 5-minute EMOM every minute on the minute, or if not a 5-minute EMOM, a 5-minute AMRAP. So as many rounds and reps as you can get in 5 minutes of something, and just testing and seeing what you can do. with a couple of movements. So it would be like a couplet of movements, and then test it again in 6 weeks just to see, if like the finishers are helping and things like that. I mean, stuff like that wouldn't necessarily be of extreme benefit for cyclists. For me, I think it's better to look at FTP, especially every, 8 weeks or so. Some places recommend every 4 weeks. I think that's a little too aggressive, but usually every 6 to 8 weeks is a good interval for testing FTP. And then also, you'll see if you've been in Tread Strong long enough, I'll trickle in the same intervals like every few months, so you'll get to test that again. And to me, that's a lot more applicable, because then you can see like, oh, this felt a lot better. Like I remember those climbing intervals from a few months ago. They felt awful the first time I did it. Kind of like it feels awful to do the first FTP test. But then testing it again, you're like, oh, that feels better. And then that's so encouraging. That feels so good, But again, caveat is try to be mindful where you are in your cycle if you are a menstruating individual, because you want to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. All right. And then try to also, have it maybe around the same time of day, energy wise, but, do your intervals, generally speaking, under the same condition if you can. It's going to be the best thing, but do you have to do that? No, it's just kind of a good practice to get into. That's all. But yeah, FTP, it's fun. And it's also kind of fun to play around with the testing format. Just try not to compare. Again, if you do like the ramp test, don't compare the ramp test to the 20-minute best, test, if that makes sense. But I personally find it's really cool because I have some folks who absolutely hate the ramp test. And I get it, because every minute you're increasing by like 10 to 20 watts. But I have other folks who really dislike the 20-minute tempo, because then they have to, it's like you almost have to game it a little bit and strategize over how hard and how easy you want to go. So that's why I think it's important to kind of test out what you want. I just find that the ramp test can be a little bit easier, especially, because I try to create Tread Strong for folks who don't necessarily have the technical equipment in their house to do any type of testing. I try to have it be accessible for more people. So that's one reason I love the ramp test more than the 20-minute test. But by all means, if you have a Peloton or anything like that, or a Zwift app or something like that, use their built-in FTP test and just keep consistent with that. Okay. But don't be scared to play around just with the different testing, because it is kind of fun. All right. So that's all I had on my notes for that. In terms of the current programming, time under tension, everyone's favorite. So this is where tempo work is so beneficial. I personally love doing tempo work in the off season, especially as we're getting into winter. It makes your just tendons so much stronger. It makes you more resilient, both physically and also mentally. I think I even said that kind of tongue in cheek when I was like writing out the programming. It helps with those moments when it kind of just stinks, when we're getting into like endurance events or long climbs. Stacy will get to know that very well, and so will I. But like having that constant tension and just being able to exercise the resilience needed to get through it is so translatable to so much, on and off the bike and just in life in general. But tempo work is one of my favorite things to do. And, and when I say favorite, do I love doing it? No, not really. Like no one likes to be underneath a barbell. I'm a barbell athlete. I don't like to be under the barbell, in a front squat, for example, or even a back squat as a tempo. Like pause squats, oh my God, forget about it. Like it's my least favorite thing. But my cranky knees feel so much better when I do it. Personally, my body feels so much better, especially after the first week. Give it the first week or two, because it is going to be different, a different type of training modality. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about, because tempo is very important. Time under tension is very important just for making you resilient and a little bit more injury proof, right? But it's also important to get you here at a really good baseline strength wise. And then we can build on that, because then that's when power can really come into play, muscular endurance and things like that, as the season progresses and as we get ready to ride in the spring and summer. and we get a little bit closer to power, because now you're a little bit more resilient. You have great foundation for when we're getting more powerful on and off the bike. Okay, doing things that are a little bit more plyometric based, and jumping and getting a little bit more aggressive with the jumps as we progress. Okay, so start here. I know it's not very pleasant, especially as you're getting used to it. God, I'm still sweaty. But it is worth it in the long run. Okay, now the other thing too is volume. And I know it's something that Renee and I were talking about. So strength, there's this funny thing with strength. A lot of times we think that we just have to lift heavier in order to be stronger. And that's sometimes where, yeah, strength athletes look at that because it's like, oh, my 1 rep max or my 3 rep max or 5 rep max is this. And those numbers can be very exciting to pursue and improve upon, right? Now, of course, those numbers can be important for strength athletes, but for cyclists, this is where, and even just a general athlete, general population athlete, any sport, running, whatever, this is where volume is incredibly important. Trying to get even in the range of like 20 reps to 30 reps per body part per week. If you notice, that's what I do in Shred Strong. But that is ultimately what's going to help you get stronger, is just the volume of exercise. And the volume is going to be a little bit higher now, especially after we've gotten through the first few weeks, now into the second month of the actual program cycle. And it's winter, for everyone. I don't have anyone in the Southern Hemisphere yet, but it's winter here for us. And now's an advantageous time to really explore, volume and getting in as many reps as you can within that rep range, and still respecting that reps in reserve. All right. And some folks have talked about grip strength, especially when it comes to the deadlift, and the Romanian deadlift is, add an eccentric to it, and it's extra spicy, because Romanian deadlift is already spicy because there's no resting it on the ground. Whether you're using dumbbells or barbell, doesn't matter. You're not resting it. You're holding on to those dang weights the whole time. There's a reason for it, because grip strength. I don't want to be working on grip strength in the middle of the season, especially for my folks who are like downhill athletes and love enduro, and you're going to be braking a little bit more, or maybe you're just a little bit more tense because you're newer to mountain biking, so you might be braking a little bit more, which totally happens. I don't want to be starting to work on grip then, because then it's too late, and I feel like last season I maybe extended it just a little bit longer than I should have. We still did eccentric deadlifts because, yeah, tempo work this time of season is like chef's kiss, right? But some folks are asking, what do we do if my grip is feeling like it's going to give out before my hamstrings? That is totally normal. And it's quite intentional, because I want you to you're still working on your hinge. All right. You're still working on that hip hinge. Okay. I don't have my shandies on. I was like, wait, did I change my pants? You're still working on that hip hinge. Okay. Which is great, because that's what you want to do. But you're also working on your grip, and your grip will feel like it's going to give out before your hamstrings. And that is 100% one of the most common things that I hear from folks through this cycle, even when I had beta testers a few years ago before I actually released Shred Strong. That was always their complaint. And keep in mind, like, they were former pro enduro cyclists, so like, yeah, like she would comment like, yeah, it's always my grip. First, it's intentional. So please know you're not alone. You're in good company, because even pro athletes experience this. Recent former pro athletes. But yeah, grip health and grip strength is one of those things that can be a little bit tricky to build. But you're going to definitely see that as progression, especially in the deadlift realm, and especially with the eccentric stuff, because you are slowing it down. You're just building time under tension, not just for your hamstrings, but also your grip. Some ways to get around that. If you're on a barbell, this is when what we call hook grip can help. Dang it, I didn't bring a broomstick in here because I actually can't really, I don't know if I can fit my barbell in here because I have a small office, but we're just gonna pretend this is the barbell. So if you're a barbell athlete, stay tuned. Hook grip is, or if you're a dumbbell athlete rather, stay tuned. Hook grip is when you take the barbell, you put it right here in the nook of your thumb, and you're going to wrap your thumb first, then your fingers. Is this the most comfortable grip in the world? Absolutely not. Your thumbnail is going to feel like it's going to fall off, and you're going to want to stab yourself in the eye with this pen. But it does take some getting used to. It will not be comfortable if you have long nails. I'll go ahead and say that. Ask me how I know, because I used to actually have long nails, believe it or not. Not anymore. So it will, if you have long nails, it's just going to dig right into your fleshy fatness of your fingers, your palm. But hooking the thumb around the barbell and then wrapping your fingers around will help. Also, if you have small hands. So I have tiny hands. But this will help with grip. Okay. You can also do this on a dumbbell. I will say most dumbbell diameters, however, are going to maybe be a little bit thicker. So if you are on a thicker diameter barbell, this can also be a little bit of a problem. I'm on a smaller diameter barbell. Some people call them women's barbells. I hate giving genders to a barbell. It's an inanimate object. There's no such thing as women's and men bars, so this will be the soapbox I die on. This will be the hill that I die on. There is a smaller diameter barbell for smaller hands, and then there's a regular diameter, for people with larger hands. So discern that as you may. But it's not fair, because I have female athletes who use the larger barbell. Anyways, I'm not going to go down that route. But just try the hook grip. Try wrapping your thumb around first, and then fingers. It's going to feel weird, but give it a little bit of time. And again, it's going to also feel like your thumbnail might be coming off, which I know sounds very disgusting. But if you're a runner and you've ever done long distance running, you know that feeling of like your toenails are getting a little weird. It can kind of feel like that a little bit at first, just because you are pulling, you're creating tension. Like even my pen, I mean, look at this. And I was not hardly gripping it, but like versus that, like that's actually really wild. I've never done that demo, but I knew it was going to work because hook grip just, holy shit. Yeah, that's pretty impressive actually how well it works. But try the thumb first, then fingers. This is a grip that's very common in Olympic weightlifting and also some powerlifting. Some people do powerlift or deadlift heavy using a hook grip, which I don't know how they do it without working their thumbs, but it can help. All right. So try the hook grip. It will work on dumbbells. However, again, I already said bigger diameter might be a problem. The only other thing left is, of course, besides building grip strength, is lifting straps. And I do have my lifting straps. I have my lifting straps in my office. I don't know why. But they are these cool little things that, oh no, do I have them here? That you can wrap around your barbell. Dang, I don't. I moved them outside. So they're like canvas straps that you can wrap around your barbell. You can also wrap around dumbbells. And then you're going to like wrap it around, and then you're going to grip it. All right. Because the canvas is wrapped around the object, it can be weird, because if you're ready to let go of things and let go of your barbell or dumbbell, when you're not skilled in how to let go of it, it can be uncomfortable, because then you're forced to then carry the dumbbells or the barbell all the way to the ground and just kind of figure out how to loosen the strap, because your first couple times using it can just be a little strange. So just give yourself the option to try it. If you do get some lifting straps, they usually cost anywhere between $10 and $20. Just get the canvas ones. You don't necessarily have to get leather ones, but they can help lessen the demand on your grip, because then you have a strap that's connecting you to the object. And these are very helpful for barbell athletes, but I don't think in this type of scenario with the eccentric Romanian deadlifts that they're necessary. Like personally, I have my lifting straps wherever they are. Like I have my lifting straps, but I'm not using them for these Romanian deadlifts, because personally I'd rather go on the lower end of the rep scheme and work on my grip, if that makes sense. So hopefully that helps. I know, Renee, you were not the only one. Other people had this question as well. And I see everyone's comments, like, oh my God, my grip gave out before my hamstrings. Totally normal. You were completely normal with it. Those are really, I covered the questions that I had received when it comes to FTP, accountability, grip strength and hamstring health, or hamstring strength altogether, volume. So don't focus on, how much you're lifting, but focus on course form more than anything. Don't forget to send me some form videos if anyone's interested in that. They're one of my favorite things to receive. So don't ever feel like, oh, I'm a burden. No, I'm a coach for a living. Like, I love seeing people's form. Plus, secretly, I also love seeing people's home gyms. Like, I don't care if it's just a set of dumbbells and a Swiss ball. I love seeing people's home gyms. I love seeing people's dogs. I've had people send in videos of them lifting their children. I will not say who has sent me those videos, but you know who you are. But like, people like squatting their children and like asking for form. And I don't care. Just send them to me. They're so fun. They make me happy. Like, literally, I'm usually just ear to ear smiling watching form videos. But yeah, don't hesitate to send me those. I usually give suggestions for every workout, like, hey, I recommend sending me the last set of heavy eccentric deadlifts. But if you don't want to send me the set of eccentric deadlifts, don't send me something else. If you feel weird in another movement, send me whatever you feel weird. All right. I'm more than happy to put like my eyes on you and kind of figure out what we can maybe change, or if you're doing really well. So that's everything. I want to kind of open up the floor to folks and just see, Stacey, Renee, do you have anything to add, or any other questions you wanted me to touch on? And it's okay to say no. I'm going to put it the Jeopardy.
Is there a benefit to getting a power meter?
Um,
As opposed to just working off of heart rate?
I mean, okay, so like, I'm a data person. Like, of course I love data. I personally don't have a power meter on any of my bikes except my kicker. So I have an indoor Wahoo kicker, which has the built-in power meter. Am I thinking about getting a power meter for my mountain bike? Yes. And the reason for that is because I'm already really familiar with my heart rate, and I'm already really familiar with my RPE and kind of where I stand, especially with my vocal cord crap that I have going on with my breathing and stuff. So I already kind of know those things. Now I just kind of want to see, like, what is my power like out on the trail? So, I mean, Stacey, it can't hurt you. However, it can hurt you when you become obsessed with those numbers. And that's one reason I haven't gotten it, even though I'm a data nerd, because I know I can go down that path of being like super freaking obsessed about my numbers and just be like, whoa, yeah, okay, I was at like 350 watts on this climb. That's really cool. And I don't want to do that. Like, I do use Strava, and Strava does estimate your power output, and I feel like they probably are pretty accurate based on kind of what I know from my years. Even when even when I started coaching, I was a spinning instructor, and you kind of know what those feel like, with your heart rate involved. But if you use it as a data point, kind of like your weight scale, right? If you use it as a data point to give you a little bit of feedback on like, okay, this is kind of what I was doing, this was my output in that part of the ride, that's cool. Let me see now how I can improve, especially when it comes to climbing. Because, for you with your endurance events, there's going to be a fair amount of climbing at elevation. So it's really nice to know, like, okay, I know I can sustain this. And during race day, to have it visible, especially if it can connect to your, if you have a head unit on your handlebars, that could be useful information in order to help prevent you from completely trashing yourself. Because sometimes, especially on race day, not to say don't redline, do redline, like, but you also have to know leading up to the event what you're capable of maintaining. And that's when having live advice, when you're not being drunk from the idea of racing, or, like, especially for this, like for the Firecracker 50, you're going to start in the downtown. You're going to be getting high fives from kids because it's the start of the race. You're going to be on this racing high, all right? If you're doing the Firecracker 50, which I think there might be one other person in the group that might be doing it too. So then you're going to be high, you're going to be feeling all the dopamine, and then you're going to start the awful climb. And then you might not be able to check in and be realistic. All right. So it is nice to, long story short, because I can go on a tangent with this, it's nice to have. I will say you don't have to get the most expensive power meters, because even Stages now makes a phenomenal power meter that is just like on your crank. I personally, like, I know that Garmin's, what is it, the Rally, the pedals. I'm just going to go ahead and say this. I'm pro Garmin. I mean, this is my 4th Garmin in my life. I love Garmin. However, the pedals, there can be a little bit of a lag. So like a 3-second lag in power output, if that's important for you, if you're doing intervals, especially if you're doing intervals outside. That's something to consider. It's pretty minor though. Really, when you think about it, a 3-second lag is only going to be a make or break situation when you're doing shorter intervals. So if you're doing like 30-second intervals, if you're doing like a 20-minute interval, don't worry about a 3-second lag. Like, it's not important. But shorter intervals, especially if you're doing 10s or 50 10s, don't worry, you will be. Like, that's where the 3-second lag is going to be like kind of a shitty scenario. But it's pretty minor. The other thing with the rallies, they're kind of heavy. They're like a pound. And I know I'm gonna sound like a weight weenie, but like when you're at elevation, you're climbing a lot, you know, sometimes a weight that you add to the bike can make a big difference. And a pound for a set of pedals is pretty extreme versus just getting the Stages and then having, like, if you're clipping in, having some XTs or having a lighter pedal, you know. But yeah, the rallies can be just a little expensive, but I would say look at the Stages. And in fact, I even had the same conversation with Harley from Basecamp Cyclery. Such an awesome guy. And he does a lot of endurance mountain biking events, and he works in a bike shop. And you don't always find that, because a lot of times, sometimes the bike shop mechanics or owners, they might be more into road cycling. I'll be honest with you. You know, Wheat Ridge Cyclery is a perfect example. Love the shop, but they're more geared towards like, okay, road and gravel. But Harley really knows endurance mountain biking, and he is such a great source of information, and he's so giving of his time. And I will go ahead and say, you know, he really opened my eyes up to the Stages. I think it's like a crank or something. And I want to say that the price is under $1,000, which is good, you know, because most power meters sometimes, oh my, I mean, they used to be even more expensive. It's kind of like Blu-ray disc, you know, DVRs or Blu-ray disc, whatever, you know, remember when they were like several $100s and then they went down to like $150. So we're kind of in that point. I think the prices will probably get a little bit more competitive maybe in the next year or two. I don't know, but we can't guarantee that, or the next few years rather. But it can be helpful. Look at your options. The Rally can be cool because it is only like $500 or $600. I can't remember, for just the one pedal. So it's just a single pedal. That's the power meter. That's the option. That's great. But I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm aggressive with my pedals. I personally don't want to be slamming my power meter into rocks, you know, and that's where for me, it's like nails on a chalkboard. So I probably will not lean personally towards doing the pedal power meters, because I'm just like, oh my God, that's going to drive me bonkers. Because then I'm going to feel the need to replace it every few years. And that's going to be expensive versus, you know, Stages or something like that. That's going to be in my drive chain, and it's not necessarily going to require replacing, if that makes sense. So I don't know. It's a fun tool. You know, you can't go wrong with it. Just don't become obsessed with the numbers, and use it as feedback. I know that was like a 5-minute.
Oh no, that was everything I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're welcome. More than happy to help. But it is kind of one of those things where it's like, oh man, you know, like power meters are so fun just to kind of see, but is it necessary? Absolutely not. I really think you can get so much out of RPE. So much out of RPE and heart rate, and just kind of marrying those two and really becoming aware of those two, and just your breathlessness and how good you feel on and off the bike. But yeah, are you leaning towards a certain power meter at all, or are you kind of
Well,
looking?
I was looking at the Rally pedals, and the reason that I was thinking about those was that I could change them between the bikes,
Yes,
and my power would always stay consistent.
yes. And that is one thing Harley did say. He's like, I recommend the pedals because you're not a mechanic, you know. Wait, you're not a mechanic. Like
I'm
you're
not a
not like an
mechanic. No,
engineer or
no.
something, are you? Because sometimes I will say, like my engineering clients, they're like, oh, I'll gladly change out stuff like every time I ride.
Mhm.
And to me, that's just like, no, that's to me, that's an entry level. Like that's going to prevent me from riding my bike if I have to change something. Um, so he did say like pedals are, that's when it's really cool because then you can switch it around bike to bike. So that is another consideration. I'm glad you did bring that up because yeah, that is one thing that he did mention. Um, but
Well,
then,
I'm glad you mentioned the weight because I hadn't thought about that
yeah,
aspect.
I mean, he did say that's like the most frowned upon trait of the rally. But I mean, but then I was also like, I actually don't know how much my XTs weigh, like, and then I haven't had a chance because literally he and I just saw him on Saturday. Um, so I haven't had a chance to do any like nitty gritty research. But, at the end of the day, a pound, it can certainly make a difference because it is an extra pound you have to carry around, but you kind of have to compare it. Again, you want to compare apples to apples. So compare like your current pedals weight versus the rally, pedal weight. And then just kind of see, and that might help you make a little bit of a better decision. And I'm sure some folks who are answering, watching replay might have things to add. And by all means, if you do, and you're watching this as a replay, add it into the group chat or on the Facebook group, like whatever. And then that way we can kind of all see, and learn like from their experience. But yeah,
Thank
Harley,
you.
Stacy, you're in. Wait, remind me where you are. Are you in Evergreen? No,
Highlands Ranch.
Highlands Ranch.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, well, fantastic. Have you been to base camp?
I
Who?
have not.
Okay. And I don't get paid to say this by any means. Like Harley just came into my life recently. Um, but Harley's a really rad dude. He owns Base Camp Cyclery. Yes, I think it's Base Camp Cyclery. And the location is South Denver, but he
Okay.
also just opened one in Castle Rock.
Oh, all
And
right.
Is
yeah,
that where you go, Renee?
it's not, we have a lot of options down here in
Yeah.
Castle Rock, but
Yeah.
definitely been up there. He runs some really good deals, like sale wise, and it's in a good location, Stacy.
I'm actually looking at it right now. So yeah, I'll
Yeah.
be
And
making a
and
trip.
and they literally like endurance mountain biking. Like that's their thing. Like Harley does it. Harley's done Firecracker. And other people who work at the shop also have done Firecracker, have done Leadville, have done Breck Epic, have done all the things, Harley's even a conquistador. So he even did oh God, I'm going to mutilate this. The race down in Costa Rica, which is the hardest mountain bike
Oh,
race in the
oh,
world. Yeah.
yes.
So like he's a very good source of information and reasonable
Okay.
prices, and he's just such a good guy. I don't know how to explain it. Like,
Well,
yeah,
thank you for putting him on my radar. I'll go pay
no,
him a
for
visit.
sure, for sure. And I don't get anything in return. I don't think he gave me a discount on my shimmy butter. But like, yeah, I mean, good guy, very good guy.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And thanks for Renee for like saying something because I haven't been down to the Castle Rock location. He often will be at that location just because I think he and his wife might live a little bit closer to that. But he mixes it up. The OG store, the original, is the one that's in South Denver, and I
Um,
just went to it. And it was really cute.
and I'm willing to travel for the right store.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that's how it is for me too, because I generally tend to go to Rhythm Cycles here, and
I
I love
love rhythm
Shawnee.
cycles.
Yes, I love Shawnee. Those guys take such good care of my bike, and I will keep taking my enduro bike there. However, I've quickly started to realize that I'm going to have a bike shop for each bike. And, like I'm going to have Treehouse Cyclery for my gravel bike because that is what they specialize in. And my friend also owns that bike shop, and I do want to support her bike shop because it's a female owned bike shop. Like, what? And she does have a male partner, but it doesn't matter. But like I want to support that because it's small business and female owned is really cool. Um, and then I'll take my enduro bike to Rhythm, and that's actually the closest bike shop to me besides Wheat Ridge, which is a little bit further down the road. And then I'm gonna start going to, base camp for my mountain bike endurance, like my endurance mountain bike, if and when I do get one. Because again, he's been so helpful trying to figure out what bike will fit me. And I can't say enough good things about that. People, as you watch this, if you want to give a shout out to your bike shop, by all means, again, I mean, maybe don't do that in the group chat because I don't want to also annoy people. Just don't tag everyone because I don't want people's like phones to blow up. Maybe just put it as a comment or in the Facebook group, or maybe I'll start a Facebook post and just kind of ask like, hey, where's your bike shop? Because we do have people all over. You know, I do have some folks in New Mexico, you know, Washington State, Maryland, stuff like that. It might be kind of cool to have a resource like that. Yeah. Anything else? And it's okay. If you think of a question after we log off, guess what? I'm still here. I just don't want to make this too long for folks in case they are watching the replay. I know sometimes that could be like a turn off, like, oh, this video is like 55 minutes long. I don't want to watch it. But really, it's just the bulk of it. It's the first 20 minutes. So, all right. Well, it was good seeing both your faces. I know a lot of folks weren't able to make it, and that's totally fine. A lot of people lean on this recording. I will start mixing it up in terms of like doing things on Wednesdays and Thursdays and things like that in future weeks. So stay tuned for that, especially because our next one will be the first week of January. I'm not going to be doing it on Monday because that's January 1st. I stopped at work, but I'm going to kind of maybe take that as a half day if I can. And spend some time with Aaron and stuff and Milo, but I won't do it on Tuesday either, but I'll probably have that week on Wednesday or Thursday. Okay, so stay tuned for that. And also stay tuned for Agnes's yoga stuff. So there will be a survey in the email. Please fill out that survey. Let us know kind of what you're looking for in terms of yoga options. I'm trying to keep it in the 10 to 20 minute range. So there's going to be 2 questions. It's a very simple survey. 2 questions, takes less than a minute. Took me like 10 seconds to do it. Choose which length, 10 or 20 minutes. And then second question is choose what you want the first one to focus on. If you want it to be upper body, if you want it to be low back and hips, or if you want it to just be a full body flow, your choice. But most answers win. So yay, vote. But yeah, hopefully you love Agnes. She's amazing. Gives phenomenal hugs as well, and she's just a good human. But she's been a yoga instructor for quite a while, but she's wanting to kind of do some more online offerings, and she's already a Shred Strong athlete. So I'm like, hey, let's start here, you know, like let's get your jitters out with recording yourself, because it is so uncomfortable recording yourself, just FYI, like so uncomfortable. And I know that that's what might be preventing folks from sending in videos to me for feedback. Just know no one else is really watching you at the gym. If you're recording in a busy gym, I am not going to, like, please, I hope you all feel safe with me. Like, I'm not judging, like, oh, girlfriend's wearing this. Like, I don't care what the heck you're wearing. I mean, please do wear clothes. But like, you know, like be appropriate. But like, I'm not going to be like, oh, you know, like, what is she wearing? If you all have ever biked with me or like been around me, you will probably see how tomboyish I am. Like, I could give less of a flying F what you're wearing. So please don't let that limit. And don't worry, like if you're not showered or things like that, or you just look rough, you have baby vomit on you, I really don't care. I just would rather you send the video and feel secure about your movement, getting some feedback from me. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Baby vomit and all, send it in. All right, I'm signing off. I'm gonna stop with record, and I swear to God, it changed. There it is.